So character is very important. Character is very, very important. Yeah? I don't want to come to the topic. Yeah, I just want to thank you very much. Yeah, to Ibu Mira. Yeah, who also attended and having a time to join the seminar. Yeah, and also brother Professor Azmil. Yeah, from Malaysia. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, and invitation from University of Paramadina. Yeah. And Brother Nasim, Zereka, thank you for your presence here. And last but not least, yeah, Dr. Suratno and Ibu Maya, yeah, who are very active in networking this seminar, yeah, connecting academic relation with others, yeah, and this is very, very important for us, also for the student who lecturer and student who join this seminar. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, because we have at least four speaker, four speaker. I stop here. Yeah, thank you very much for your presence here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Didik. And now I will let Dr. Bill Suratno as a for the introduction to discussions as a chairman of the Lead Institute of Paramadina University. Good evening, Pak Suratno.
Okay. Good evening, Mbak Nurma. Thank you. Mbak Nurma, allow me to share my PowerPoint on the screen. Is it possible?
Of course, sir.
Okay. Good night, Pak. Good evening, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa bihi nasta'inu ala umuri dunya waddin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Rabbi israh li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'd. Honorable Rector of Paramadina University, Professor Didik J. Rachbini, honorable speakers, Ibu Mira Reetz, Mr. Nasim Zereka from Australia, Professor Azmil Tayeb from Penang, Malaysia, ladies and gentlemen, participants of the webinar. First of all, I would like to thank God, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has been granting us with blessing and mercies, so we all could attend the webinar in good condition. Salawat and salam, let us praise to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, whom we always expect his syafaat in the Yaumul Qiyamah, in the end of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have our special topic on behalf of celebrating 2024 National Education Day. We are going to discuss about character education in Indonesia. Thank you very much for the speakers, Bu Mira, Mr. Nasim, and Professor Azmil, who already joining us. Let me have very brief, very short explanations about character education in Indonesia, because later on we are going to listen to the explanation about character education in Germany, in Australia, and in Malaysia. So we, Indonesia, can learn, can compare to character education in other countries. In Indonesia, we choose the topic, I mean, character education in Indonesia. Sorry, wait. Wait. We choose the topic, I mean, character education in Indonesia because based on the current data, for example, about the survey in 2023 that especially bullying at Indonesian school remains high. Yeah, this is the data from January to August, from July to July in 2023. Bullying cases at Indonesian school remain high, including even in the religious institution like madrasah and pesantren. So when we reflect our current education in Indonesia, so it must be highlight about the issue of character education. In Indonesian context, Bu Mira, Pak Mr. Nasim, and Professor Azmil, President Jokowi in 2017 issued the presidential regulations number 87 year 2017 about PPK, penguatan pendidikan karakter, or strengthening character education. And this PPK, or strengthening character education, is aimed at developing and giving students as part of so-called golden generation, Indonesian golden generation in 2045, because in that year Indonesia will reach the age of 100 after its independent day in 1995. In Indonesian context, character education at least has 4 dimensions, so-called olah hati or ethics, olah fikir or literacy, olah rasa or aesthetic, and olah raga or kinesthetic. Character education also is integrated in at school in intracurricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities. The concept of character education in Indonesia also integrating a school, not merely school, but also society and family. This is the concept from the government, due to Perpres number 87 2017. Education character also has 5 pillars or 5 values, namely religious, integrity, nationalism, independent, and gotong royong, socialism. This is the explanations about those 5 pillars. I don't want to explain it more, just a very brief explanation. Okay, and this is also in terms of religious education in Indonesia. So teacher has at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 roles at school. First is as an educator, second is as catalysator, The third is goalkeeper. The fourth is facilitator, and the fifth is what is it? Penghubung, like a bridge, mediator. And this is the SIG of role 5, yeah, of teacher role at school regarding character education in Malaysia. And then practically in Indonesian context, character education is derived, yeah, into specific program, namely P5, ya, P5, Project Penguatan Profil Pelajar Pancasila, or Project of Strengthening the Profile of Pancasila Student. Project of Strengthening the profile of Pancasila student, of P5. So nowadays, all school in Indonesia, they have been trying to implement P5 program in their respective school. This P5 program, as the core activities of character education at school, is also integrated into intracurricular, extracurricular, and also school culture. Yeah. And this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 what is it? 6 pillar of the profile of Pancasila student, yeah, in terms of character education Indonesia. First is like religious, yeah. Second is independent. The third is critical thinking. The fourth is global. And then the fifth is gotong royong, socialism, and the sixth is creative. This is the P5 program that has been implemented in all school in Indonesia nowadays. Beside P5 or P5 program, many schools in Indonesia, they also have been implementing program related to character education, especially due to their local or the identity of their school. For example, like in the all school, yeah, affiliated to the Nahdlatul Ulama, they will have KNU-an, yeah, Aswaja an-Nahdiyah, because it is main part of their character as well. Also in Muhammadiyah school, they have Kemuhammadiyahan. In Taman Siswa, for example, they have also just like Taman Siswa education principle inherited from Ki Hajar Dewantoro. And also like in Catholic school, because I have been researching there. For example, in St. Louis Catholic School in Surabaya, they have subject, namely Vincentian Way, Jalan Vincentia. This is a subject referred to Santo Vincentius, yeah, the figure of the school. This is the local character education, yeah, based on the identity of the school. And this is the last of my brief explanations about several challenges regarding what I have explained before. The first is about high and low quality school in Indonesia, because if we are looking at school, especially in the big cities, we will find so many high quality school. But if we are looking at remote area, in Eastern Indonesia, for example. So there has been so many so-called low quality school in terms of its leadership, teachers' capability, budget and facility, and school's culture, etc., etc. So it is also related to, I mean, the problem in implementing character education in their school. The second one, I mean, the second challenge is coming from family ignorance, because in Indonesian context, there have been a lack of parent engagement. Nowadays, we are using like social media, like parents WhatsApp group, and then we can communicate each other, and to some extent, it has been enhancing parent engagement. This is the way we are using social media thanks to this. And the third challenge about character education in Indonesia is coming from negative influence of gadget and social media. Because, for example, from the data, if we are talking about what so-called digital inclusion, meaning people who are using the internet, the percentage index is more than like 90%. This is about digital inclusion, the user. But when we are looking at the so-called digital literacy, the percentage index is only 45 or 47. You can compare with the digital inclusion, 90%, and then digital literacy only 45 or 47 in the index. So it means that most of young generation in Indonesia, they are not using internet securely or something like that. So negative influence of gadget and social media become the challenge of our character education. And the fourth challenge coming from so-called lack of social exemplary, keteladanan. There is a very famous question, 1000 ucapan perintah akan kalah dengan satu keteladanan. 1000 saying and instruction will be defeated by only one exemplary. So, and in Indonesia, we can say that there has been lack of social exemplary and even negative exemplary in society. For example, in public area, about disiplin lalu lintas, mengantri dan sebagainya, membuang sampah sembarangan. So, lack of social exemplary and even negative exemplary in society still a little bit challenge in terms of character education in Indonesia. This is actually, in my opinion, the fourth challenge that we have been facing recently about the character education. And then, happy Indonesian National Education Day for us, for Indonesian, and we hope that Indonesian education is going better and better, especially also character education. I think it is enough from me. Thank you very much for the speaker, for participant, and please accept my apologies if there is any inconvenience during our webinar or our discussion. Thank you. Wallahul muwafiq ila aqwamit thoriq, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Good evening, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pastor. So for the main webinar, This will be moderated by Maya Fransiska, researchers of the Lead Institute and also a director of Sekolah. Good evening, Mbak Maya.
Good evening, Nurma. Thank you very much. Terima kasih, Nurma. Saya ambil alih dari sini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam. Good evening. Good evening to Rector Paramadina, Bapak Didik Rachbini. Selamat malam juga. Good evening kepada Bapak Suratno as the chairman of the Lead Institute. Good evening and welcome to all of the participants. We very much hope that this event will bring you all the new knowledge and a wider perspective about character education in Indonesia and also abroad, especially in Australia, Germany, and Malaysia. Sebelumnya saya mengucapkan selamat Hari Pendidikan Nasional dengan diiringi harapan besar bahwa pendidikan di Indonesia akan terus berkembang ke arah yang lebih baik dalam mewujudkan sumber daya manusia Indonesia yang unggul dan berdaya saing global. Amin ya robbal alamin. Welcome to our discussion this evening, which specially brought a topic about no education without character. We just heard about how is the character education in Indonesia from Pak Suratno. In principle, there are 6 pillars of character education, which is known as a strengthening project for the profile of Pancasila students. The problem, which is now is ongoing process to solve by the government, is about the equality between the education system implemented in big city and also in the rural area. All right. Now it is time to talk about character education implemented in Germany, Australia, and also Malaysia. So we could compare and also learn from them as well. Before we start, I would like to introduce the speakers. First is Mrs. Mira Reetz, the lecturer and researcher from Technische Universitaet, Ilmenau, Germany. Good evening, Mrs. Reetz. Selamat malam.
Good evening, Mbak Fransiska.
Yeah, it is nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for
inviting
inviting
sudah
me.
bisa bergabung malam ini. And next, Mr. Nasim Zereka, the inclusive education teacher from Sydney, Australia. Good evening, Mr. Zereka.
Good evening. Thank you so much.
It is nice to meet you, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight. And the last is Professor Azmil Tayeb, the lecturer from Universiti Sains Malaysia, Penang, Malaysia. Good evening, Professor Tayeb. It is nice to meet you today.
Good evening, Maya, and good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Okay, now we will begin the session with Mrs. Mira Reetz, who will share about the character education implemented in Germany. To Mrs. Reetz, time and place is yours, please.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. I don't have any slide to share. I just would like to give a short description about how my experience of studying here, or I also have a son who's in school already. So the maybe the most different part, what I feel about the education system in Germany and in Indonesia, is that here we have a free education. So we have no tuition fee from elementary schools until bachelor, master, and doctorate level. So it is for free. And I think it shows the accessibility of education in Germany. I had my first master in Indonesian in Indonesia system. I have my first master in Institute of Technology Bandung, and I had another one here in Germany. And when I compare that, I think this is part of the character, the difference. So the relationship between teacher and students are completely different. German society has this low power distance between the community. It means that for me, it is students here encouraged to argue, to be critical. And it also happened with my son, for example. The first day in school, I remember he came home and said that he's now in the fifth grade, and he said, well, my new teacher said that I have to dress up, as though I have to wear a better pants, yeah, because he loves to wear his jogging pants. And I said, okay, and what will you do? And he said, I will not follow it, because there is no connection between the pants and the way I think or the way I answer questions. And I'm really happy that he has this critical thinking and this logical thinking. And in schools here, at the schools, there is no, I mean, the parents could be offered whether you would like to have a religious, what is that? A religious course or ethical course. So of course, when it is religious in our states here, there's only Christianity. So he took, children have the opportunity to take ethic course. And it contains of so many projects that they have to do. They learn about so many religions, and they learned to argue, to discuss. They create projects, not only at schools, but also to create projects to help the community, the local community, for example. And I think that is a huge, had a huge benefit for him, and also for students, or for me myself, when I reflected how I conducted my my education here until I finished my doctoral degree. So this character of, it is okay to criticize your professor. So being professor is not say that he has last word. It is quite amazing for me where he said, okay, you are the expert, you tell me what to do. And that's giving me a kind of responsibility. And I think that given the strong character. And I think I just would like to drop one more thing, is about social media, for example, like Pak Suratno already mentioned, how it's very important to deal with social media as part, how we could, what is that, how could we form, if we could use that word, our children. I think here in Germany, the data protection issue is considered to be very serious, taken very seriously. So even we as parents, the teacher is not allowed to take pictures just like that without the permission of the parents, for example, and not even to post it in social media. So I think, and of course, Pak Suratno also mentioned that we live with examples. So what I would like to criticize that, for example, in Indonesia, teacher who asked their students to post something in social media to get more likes from their families. So I think it's really a burden, so that the children learn that to get thumb ups or likes is very much important. And I don't think it's necessary. I think we have to deal with this social media really carefully. And I think that is a really, maybe it should be included in the curricula, because here, how to deal with social media, how to deal with freedom of speech. So when you use social media, you comment on something, how to be polite in the internet. it is also part of the curricula. So it's not part only of the ethic course, but even in the German course. So so it's not separated from the courses. So it's embedded in this German language or English language course, how to be polite to other students and teachers, also giving comments. Yeah, I think that is a short things that I could describe about the education system here, or the ethics or character that the education system tried to create within schools or universities in Germany. Thank you so much, Mbak Maya.
Okay, thank you very much for your explanation. I think this is so interesting, yeah. All right, now we are going to hear from Mr. Nasim Zereka from Australia, who will share with us about the character education in Australia.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Zereka, yeah, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa
Time is
rahmatullahi
yours.
wa barakatuh. Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in such a beautiful discussion about character education. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge everybody who is present in this Zoom meeting and pay my respect to each one of you. I also would like to acknowledge the traditional custodian of the land on which I'm doing this meeting here in Australia. I pay my respect to the Aboriginal people, the custodian of this land. Pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. This land was not without people, and this terror was not nullius. This land was, is, and always will be traditional Aboriginal land. I also acknowledge that there was a very strong history and connection between Aboriginal people and Indonesian people, especially from the Makassar region. Just a little bit of a background. So I have been in the public education system here in Australia for the last 14 years. I came to Australia as a teenager at the age of 13. So I went to public school here in Australia in Western Sydney. I also graduated from Western Sydney University, the University of Western Sydney. That's what it was called back then. And within my education journey, I taught, in primary schools, I taught a Year 4 class for 2 years. I also taught Arabic and cultural studies for many years. And this year is my first year as an inclusive education teacher. What I would like to share with you today, and I'm sorry as well, I didn't get a chance. We just returned back to school this week for term 2. So I haven't had an opportunity to put a PowerPoint together, but I will share hopefully some information that would be beneficial. So in Australia, we have the federal education, and every state have an education government on a state level. In Australia as well, and I'll talk very specifically about New South Wales because this is where I live. Students have and obviously parents have the opportunity or the freedom to choose where they wish to send their children. They have the opportunity to go to a public school, which is pretty much, a free education system, an education system that is accessible by everybody. In saying that, it is the rule or the policy is students must attend, if they are going to a public school, they need to attend the school in their local area. So there are many, many public schools around. And if you would like to go to a public school, it must be the local school within your area. You can also choose to send your children to a private school, whether that would be an Islamic school, whether it would be a Catholic school, or an independent school, which don't particularly, you know, follow the religious aspect. So, you know, as a father myself, I've got 3 children. Two of my daughters attend public schools. We did, for example, try an Islamic setting for 1 term for my eldest daughter. And for me personally, I found that it was very overwhelming, and it was very, there was a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure, unfortunately, in private schools and in Islamic schools. So me as an educator myself, I strongly believe that students should love going to school. You know, it's not only about academia, but it's also about, you know, character development and becoming, you know, a member of society, and, you know, to learn and grow in an environment that is not very condensed, or that there's not too much pressure. What I would like to share with you, I will read the plan for the New South Wales public education. And this is what it says from the website. Our plan is built on the power of public education to provide opportunities for all and to transform lives through learning. What also is on this page, it talks about the plan. Our plan set our direction and priorities for the coming years and harnesses the commitment of our teachers and schools to provide an outstanding education for every learner. We believe in every student and support them to achieve their potentials by enabling lifelong learning. Students will be prepared for life as informed, critical thinkers with a love of learning, ready to contribute to the world as active citizens. Our commitment to equity and excellence means every student can learn, grow, and belong at school. They do this in a safe and inclusive environment that celebrates the strength of our vibrant, diverse, and multicultural community. We are committed to improving the status of the teaching profession, as well as the well-being of our teachers and staff, by addressing workload concerns and supporting teachers to do their core job of teaching and leading students. Our plan for New South Wales public education outlines how we will create an equitable and outstanding education system and strengthen trust and respect for the teaching profession. Our approach has been informed by evidence and insight from engagement with our education community. There are different focus areas. Some of them are, you know, giving children the best start in learning, strengthening student well-being and development, providing meaningful post-school pathways, strengthening trust and respect for the teaching profession and school support staff. So there's a few values which I would love to share with you. They are excellence, integrity, equity, accountability, trust, and service. So like I said before, I will talk about, like, for example, my experience in southwestern Sydney. So students who attend a public school, at the end of the year, you get a report twice a year. So you get it at the end of term 2, which is about June, July. And you get one at the end of the year, which is about December, because our school year starts at the end of January. Our school year consists of 4 terms. So there's term 1, term 2, term 3, and term 4. And so basically what happens is, in the public system, students, you know, even if they, obviously we have different outcomes. We have syllabus documents that the teachers teach from, and there's different assessment that, you know, teachers use. But what I love, you know, some people think positive or negative about this particular point. At the end of the year, even if the student is not meeting these outcomes, they still go to the next grade the following year. They don't repeat the class. So for example, when I was in Lebanon, I'll give you an example. When I was in Lebanon, if I didn't pass the exam at the end of the year, I would have to repeat that year again, all over again. That doesn't happen here, you know, in Australia, in New South Wales in particular, especially in public schools. In private schools, maybe they might encourage the parents, you know, your son isn't performing. How do you feel about getting them to repeat the year? Also, so that's basically, so students can progress to the following grade, even if they're not meeting the outcomes. But what happens is when they reach year 11 and year 12, this is where, you know, things are taken a bit more seriously, because you obviously need to get, back in my days, it used to be called a University Admission Index, UAI. Now they call it UAC, or they call it ATA. So you need to get a certain percentage to be able to enter university or to be successful in a university course. Obviously, after school university is not the only option. You can go to TAFE, you can go to a private college, or you can get a traineeship or join a workforce. It has become law that, you know, students cannot leave school before the age of 17. They must stay at school until the age of 17. Students are expected to attend school every single day. And if they're absent, they need to provide reason why they're absent. With universities in Australia, unfortunately, they're not free. But if you're an Australian citizen, you can basically study and then pay later when you start working. And that's called, I forgot the name at the moment. So basically it's called HECS, Higher Education Support, or something like that. There's obviously fees and there might be some interest, but you don't pay anything until you start working full time. Another important aspect to speak about, the new government are introducing different laws and different policies when it comes to education, you know, in New South Wales. And one of them, and I believe some of you have touched on this before in terms of social media and stuff like that. So they're trying to ban mobile phones at schools, because it is seen that mobile phones can be very distracting in the classroom. So there's different policies that are put in place to ban mobile phones in public schools. Another important aspect that I would love to touch on is the new setting that I'm in at the moment, which is the inclusive education setting. And what I would love to tell you about that is One moment. So basically, the Department of Education's inclusive education policy, it supports our shared vision and the right for students of all social, cultural, community and family backgrounds and of all identities and all abilities to receive high quality education. What I would love to say about inclusive education is, for example, children or students with disability or with additional needs. They have the right to attend a public school. However, if their disability, if their condition is identified or is assessed that the student is struggling or cannot perform in a mainstream classroom, there's a process where they can apply and provide evidence, to attend a special school. It could be, a support unit in a mainstream school, or it could be like, a behavior school, or it could be like, a special school. So like, to attend that, you obviously need to put paperwork. There's a panel, and then if the applicant is successful, then they will receive a spot, in that special education setting. Where I work, so I work in a high school, in a mainstream high school. It's a public school, and we have a support unit. Pretty much the majority, if not all of our students have autism. We have 3 classes, and we basically cater for the learning needs of these students through what we call the life skill program. So trying to help these students acquire different life skills to be able to access the community. To be able to know what they can do outside the classroom, how to go to the local shop, for example. In Australia, we're very lucky. We have what is called NDIS, which is the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which supports, people with disability by giving them funding and money to be able to do different things to help them, access their, to access the community, or to do different things that they want to do with support that they can't do by themselves. So for example, with the students at my school, this plan, like, when they have funding and they have a plan, they can get extra services like occupational therapy, speech therapy. They can get support workers to take them into the community and do different things with them. Yes, so basically, also in public schools, students have the opportunity to access religious education. It's half an hour a week. Students of the Islamic faith can choose if they, like the parents need to sign a form, if they want their child to attend Islamic scripture to learn about the Islamic faith, or they go to non-scripture, which basically they don't learn about anything. There's obviously scripture for Catholic, combined scripture, etc. So yeah, this is basically just a little insight of, the education, the education here in Australia. I hope it was beneficial to you. If you've got any further questions, please feel free to ask me. Thank you so much.
Masih di mute itu Mbak Maya. Please to unmute your
Yeah,
speaker.
thank you very much, Mr. Zereka, for your explanation. It is very insightful for us about what is situation about the character education in Australia. And before we are going to hear about character from Malaysia, I will try to summarize. Saya akan coba merangkum ya sedikit dari yang telah dibicarakan tadi oleh Mrs. Reetz dan juga Pak Zereka. Dari Mrs. Reetz tentang pendidikan karakter di Jerman, di sana sekolah gratis itu memang tidak berbayar alias gratis. Relasi antara guru dan murid juga sangat terbuka dalam arti bebas bertanya bahkan untuk berargumen. Jadi dalam sehari-hari siswa juga tidak perlu berseragam, gitu. Boleh memakai pakaian kesukaan atau yang senyamannya buat masing-masing. Tidak ada pelajaran agama, hanya semacam kursus tentang etika dalam bermasyarakat dan beragama. Kebebasan tersebut kepada murid-murid maksudnya sebenarnya bertujuan agar murid lebih bertanggung jawab dengan dirinya sendiri dan bertanggung jawab dengan apa yang dipilihnya. Tentang pendidikan literasi digital termasuk dalam kurikulum secara terintegrasi dengan materi pelajaran. Sedangkan yang tadi dibahas oleh Mr. Zereka tentang pendidikan karakter di Australia, di sini public school atau sekolah negeri di Australia itu diatur berdasarkan zonasi. Jadi harus yang dekat dengan tempat tinggal. Kurang lebihnya sama seperti di sini ya. Kecuali sekolah swasta seperti sekolah Islam, Katolik dan lain-lain itu lebih bebas dan tidak ditentukan secara zonasi. Public education di Australia atau di New South Wales khususnya menyediakan pendidikan terbaik bagi para siswanya yang berkomitmen kepada kesetaraan, berpikir kritis, global access dan sebagai warga negara yang aktif. Nilai-nilai yang dianut oleh sekolah publik atau sekolah negeri adalah excellent, integritas, kesetaraan, trust atau kepercayaan, dan servis dan layanan. Setelah lulus, murid-murid bisa melanjutkan kuliah dan ikut pelatihan atau bisa juga langsung lanjut kerja. Di sekolah negeri, murid bisa mendapatkan pelajaran agama seminggu sekali, kira-kira seperti itu. Selain itu juga ada ekstrakurikuler. Tadi kalau ekstrakurikuler itu berupa seperti apa ya, terapi-terapi khusus gitu bagi mungkin bukan ekstrakurikuler. Ini pendidikan khusus untuk yang berkebutuhan khusus. Mereka juga di sekolah publik itu menyediakan semacam terapi-terapi untuk mereka, gitu. Kira-kira seperti itu. Okay. Now we are going to hear the story about character education in Malaysia from Professor Tayeb. Time is yours now, Professor Tayeb.
Okay, thank you very much, Umaya. And first of all, I'd like to thank Paramadina University, the Lead Institute, and also Pak Suratno, my old friend, who's invited me to join this program tonight. So thanks again for everyone who's attending this webinar. I'd like to share my slide here. Can you hold on 1 second? Okay. Here, can you see my slides? Okay. Can everyone see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. First, before I start my presentation, I'd like to qualify first, that I'm not an education expert. I'm a political scientist by training, who happens to study education, or rather the politics of education. So if my presentation will touch a lot on the political dynamics of education in Malaysia. So that would be, I think, the main focus of the talk tonight. Okay. Sorry. Okay. And also forgive me if I sound nasally, because like Pak Suratno, I'm also recovering from flu for the past 2 days. So I'm this is not my normal voice, unfortunately. So bear with me. First off, the character education, which is part of the national education, is based on the national education philosophy, right? So, or falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan in Malaysia, which was established in 1988 and still being used until now. So basically, when we look at this diagram, you can see it's an ideal, right? So it's an ideal. I guess like any philosophy, it's an ideal to develop a holistic student, right? So when you look at the aspects of what makes a holistic and a well-balanced student, you can see here, the student's intellect, the student's the spiritual aspect of a student, the physical aspect of the student, and also the emotional aspect of the student. And also there's a focus on the student as an individual person, and also the student as part of a community, right? So you can see tanggungjawab dan sumbangan kepada masyarakat. So the responsibility and also contribution to the society. So the goal here is to cultivate and to develop student who is well balanced and in every aspect, and also in harmony with society and nature, right? But of course, we know that what's yeah, idealism doesn't necessarily translate into 100% in reality, right? So it doesn't reflect fully in reality. So in real life, the educational practice tends to fall short of the idealism reflected in this national education policy, which we will see later in this presentation. So, as I mentioned earlier, so character education mainly focuses on two types of characters in a student, right? So first is the individual character, and the second one is the national character. Which means that, I mean, in other words, the student is part of a community, and the student's responsibility as a member of a community, of a society, the Malaysian society, right? So the individual character is, I think, it can be considered as universal. I think this is the same values that we find in other countries as well, right? So I mean, this is the kind of values that goes back to ancient Greek philosophers, like Socrates, talking about, these virtuous values, like integrity, kindness, honesty, courage, right? And all these things, these values, I think you don't just find in Malaysian education system, but you find in other countries as well, as what's already presented by our previous speakers. So these are non-contestable. I mean, everyone agrees that, having this virtuous individual, these virtuous values, are integral in making a strong and individual character. It is important in developing student into becoming a good person, right? So So it's non-negotiable, it's non-contestable. But on the other hand, when it comes to national character, so this is when we find a lot of contestation, right? Mainly because Malaysia is a multi-ethnic and multi-religious countries. And then you have different communities have different values, right? Some of these values might overlap, but some of these values might not, right? And then it inadvertently it turns into a political issue, right? So who gets to impose their values on others? Who gets to have their values, their communal values included in the national education system? Which values are excluded from the national education system? Just the values of the majority prevail in the education system as opposed to having a more inclusive values that encompasses other minority groups in the society. So this is what I meant by the national character or being the values that we tend to associate with national character are highly contested, and at times can be quite controversial, right? In Malaysia. So let me just. So just an overview of the kind of character education that you can find in national schools in Malaysia. So national schools is equivalent to sekolah negeri, right, in Indonesia. So in Malaysia we call sekolah kebangsaan. So either you have the national primary school, which is sekolah kebangsaan, sekolah rendah kebangsaan, right? Or national secondary school, which is the sekolah menengah kebangsaan or SMK. So, but this is the subjects that typically associated with character education in national school, in a national education or national curriculum, I should say. So the first one, of course, Malaysia being a Muslim majority country, so Pendidikan Islam is a mandatory subject for all Muslim students in national schools. So in Indonesia, you have PAI, right? So we have Pendidikan Agama Islam. So in Malaysia, we have Pendidikan Islam, the equivalent of PAI. So this is mandatory for all Muslim students from primary school all the way to secondary school. Even in a national exam that Malaysian students have to take every few years, like UN, Indonesia, even though there is no UN in Indonesia anymore, it's abolished by the Minister of Education. But it's in UN in Malaysia. Pendidikan Islam is a mandatory subject that you have to take, mandatory exam that you have to take for Muslim students. And then for non-Muslim students, you have Pendidikan Moral. So because obviously they don't take Pendidikan Islam, so during the Pendidikan Islam subject, so they have to go somewhere, right? So the non-Muslim students would go to Pendidikan Moral class. So in the school, right? So in the class, so when it comes the time for Pendidikan Islam and Pendidikan Moral, so the students would go their separate ways. So the Muslim students, the Malay students, because Malays are Muslims as well, so they would go to Pendidikan Islam class, and then the non-Muslim students would go to Pendidikan Moral. So they usually the same time, both subjects. And there's also the Pendidikan Civic and Kewarganegaraan, or civic education, civic and citizenship education. So this is also offered in school that everyone has to take, right? And this is, of course, the objective is to develop students who to teach them about, the values of being a citizen and also being a responsible citizen, including voting, including gotong royong, right? So you have the cooperation within the community, and also the role of government in our lives and things like that. So this is an overview here. Let's see. Okay. And also, because the amount of time that schools, the national schools, spend on Islamic education, should I say, it's not enough to many parents. They don't see it as enough, as adequate, and the instruction might not be advanced enough. It's too elementary, too basic. So many Muslim parents, they send their kids to kafah school, or a short for Kelas Al-Quran dan Fardu Ain. So Quranic school, Quranic, and also Fardu Ain, which is your individual responsibility as a Muslim, right? So like praying, fasting, and things like that. So they were sent to kafah school, which is actually funded by JAKIM, which is it's a federal agency that is in charge of administering Islamic affairs in Malaysia. So the funding comes from the federal government, or central government, should I say. So this is usually after the students attend the national school. They will come home, they will eat lunch, and then maybe after Zohor, so Zohor prayer, they would go to kafah school for maybe 2-3 hours. Yeah, and then they will come home again in the evening. So the kafah school is additional Islamic learning for parents who feel that what their kids learn in school, the Islamic subject they learn in school is maybe not enough, especially to make them to make their kids better Muslims, right? So better Muslims. So they feel that the Islamic instructions in national schools have to be augmented, has to be strengthened, by additional classes, Islamic classes, instructions outside of the national school. It's almost like less, like tuition, like Indonesia, right? So you have less after school, you take less bahasa Inggris, or less bahasa Jerman, or less matematika, whatever, right? So, but kafah is free, or very minimal payment, right? So because it's funded by the government, so it's like less, but it's not less because it's not as expensive as paying tuition, additional tuition outside of school. So it's optional, of course, but then there's the social pressure of sending your kids to kafah school. Imagine if you live in a Muslim majority neighborhood, and then all the other parents, send their kids to kafah school, and then you're the only one who don't send your kids to kafah school, and then people are like, hey, what's wrong with you? Why don't you send your kids to kafah school, right? So there's this immense pressure to send your kids to kafah school, even though perhaps you want to send your kids to like piano lessons, or any kinds of activities, extracurricular activities, but sometimes because the peer pressure, or rather the social pressure, from the neighborhood, from the neighbors, and so that kind of forces you to send your kids to kafah school in the afternoon. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. And then, there's also Islamic education, or Islamic schools, right, in Malaysia. So another source of character education, because you have parents who who feel that, as I mentioned earlier, right? So who feel that their kids, their children are not getting enough character education by way of Islamic education, right? In schools, in national schools. So they would instead choose to send their children to Islamic schools, right? So which has more Islamic subjects, right? So not simply just Pendidikan Islam, but other, maybe they have to take Arabic, that they have to take other Islamic subjects, right? So here you find various types of Islamic school and how they are managed, which government branch administer these schools. So you have the schools that are under National Ministry of Education, and then you have the schools that are under the State Religious Council, which is the state is like a provinsi in Indonesia, negara bahagian. So the states actually have a lot of power in administering Islamic affairs within their own states. So like if you go by the Australian example, the states can be New South Wales or ACT or Western Australia or Victoria. So in Malaysia, we have various states that are in charge. They have their own in charge of their own Islamic affairs, including Islamic education, Islamic schools. And also the one I mentioned before, JAKIM, right? So the one that's funding the kafah schools. They also fund the Sekolah Agama Rakyat or People's Religious Schools. So this is basically an overview of how Islamic education in Malaysia is being administered and managed, and also, I guess in a way controlled by the government. So we will go more perhaps in the next slide. Okay. So back to the contestation, that I mentioned earlier, right? The contestation of values or contending values that one can find in national identity or national character, should I say, and also Muslim character, right? So what is an ideal Muslim, or what is required of you as a Muslim in Malaysia, right? So which is an important part of character education itself, right? So first we go to national identity, right? So what it means to be a Malaysia, right? To be a Malaysian, right? To be a Malaysian. So as we know, Malaysia is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. So we have the Malays, which is the majority, right? Almost 60% of the population. And then we have the Chinese, which is about 25%. And then we have Indians, which is about 8-9%. And then we have the indigenous people, the Orang Asli in the Peninsula Malaysia. And then we have the Dayak people in Malaysian Borneo, in Sabah and Sarawak. So it's multi-religious, multi-ethnic. And of course, there's going to be competition, right? So which values that should be included in the national identity, national character, that's being implemented in schools, introduced in schools, in the curriculum, right? The same with Muslim identity as well, right? Because this is also part of that contestation, So what it means? What does it mean to be a Muslim in Malaysia, right? So what is acceptable practice? What is not acceptable practice? And things like that, right? So, and this is tightly controlled by by the government. So and by the religious orthodoxy, right? So and you can see there is an increasing trend of the dominance of majoritarianism. So which means that the Malay Muslim, the conservative Malay Muslim values, that they can be quite exclusive, right? So basically looking at the Malays as tuan rumah, as the landlord, and then the other ethnic groups are just are just there at the mercy of the Malays, right? So majoritarianism, and also Islamic orthodoxy, which means that there's only one way to practice Islam in Malaysia, which is the official way, right? The way that is being set by the government. So you can find these values, majoritarianism values, and also orthodoxy values in character education in the national schools and also in Islamic schools in Malaysia, right? So, and this is actually a worrying trend now, since the Malaysian politics is highly polarized. So if any of you have been following the political and the politics in Malaysia, the election in Malaysia, you can see how polarized the Malaysian society is, because just by your ethnic and religious identity, people already know which party that you vote for, right? So that's how polarized it is, right? So without knowing anything about that person, if I see a Malay person, some random Malay stranger on the street, and most likely I know which party this person votes for. So the same if I see a Chinese person or Indian person on the street. So without knowing anything, I already know. So that which party this person votes for. So this is how polarized Malaysian society is. So, and it's a worrying trend, and it's reflected in the national education system in schools. And the irony is that the national school should be the place where you cultivate, you develop students who are Malaysians, right? But since it's overwhelmingly dominated by Malay Muslim values, right? So which drove away many Chinese or non-Malay parents from national schools. So the irony is that now you see more, actually even Malays actually. So now you see more Malay parents sending their kids to Chinese vernacular schools. So we have Chinese schools in Malaysia. We have Tamil school or Indian school in Malaysia as well. So send their kids to Chinese vernacular school. More Malays in Chinese primary vernacular school than Chinese students in national primary schools, right? So that's the irony of it, right? Even the Malays are leaving the national schools to go to Chinese schools. Okay, and finally, the final part of my presentation. I'm sorry if I'm taking up a lot of time. So so this is the final part of my presentation, which is about integrated Islamic school, or as in Indonesia you call it Sekolah Islam Terpadu, right? SIT. So in Malaysia we call Sekolah Islam Integrasi, right? So but basically they're both the same thing, right? So so the private integrated Islamic schools, they're very popular among well-to-do Muslim professionals. As you know, even SIT in Indonesia, you can find a lot in Depok, in Bekasi, or where you find a lot of this like the one that I visited years ago. It was the Nurul Fikri, SIT Nurul Fikri, which I'm sure like many of maybe some of you know, in Depok. So I mean, so these kind of schools tend to cater to wealthy Muslim professionals, right? So because the tuition fee is quite expensive, right? It can be quite expensive, can be quite prohibitive for most people, who don't earn enough, right, to send their kids to these schools, right? So, and it's a part of the tarbiyah, or education of the dakwah movements, right? Because the schools like in Indonesia, the same in Malaysia as well, most of the schools are established by the dakwah groups, dakwah-based groups. Like Indonesia, you have the Jemaah Tarbiyah that later became PKS, right? In Malaysia, we also have similar dakwah-based organizations, and actually they even work together, right? So they collaborate with each other. So the dakwah movement that is inspired by Ikhwanul Muslimin or the Muslim Brotherhood, right? So the primary reason for Muslim parents to send their kids to this expensive private Islamic school is because there is a lack of trust, in the pre-existing Islamic education, and also the quality of education in national schools, right? So they feel that, so these Muslim parents, they feel like the education found in the national schools are not Islamic enough, and also not academically rigorous enough, right? So these two go hand in hand, right? So a lot of the private Islamic schools in Malaysia, the SSIT, they use curriculum like IGSCE or the IB, International Baccalaureate curriculum, so it's a national curriculum that later allows the graduates, of these schools, to study abroad. Most of them do go abroad. They study in the UK, Australia, the US, and these schools tend to use English as the medium language. So many wealthy Muslim parents, they don't find this or they find it not enough, right? Or severely lacking in national schools. And also they believe in this Islamization of knowledge, right? So you learn secular subjects, which they see to be divorced from values, right? From these moral values. So these schools, they advocate for the Islamization of knowledge, where you fuse, combine, general subjects, like science or mathematics or physics or whatever, with Islamic values, that you can find in the Quran and Hadith, right? So this is also the main objective of these schools. So basically, what these schools want to produce is that Muslims who excel both in this life, right? As a professional, as a scientist, as a lawyer, as any of these high achieving professions, and also in the hereafter, right? So being a good Muslim as well. So both in the here and the now, in the here and now, and then the hereafter, right? So okay. Yeah, so since it's part of a movement, you can see there's a seamless indoctrination of da'wah values, right? So which tends to center on character education, right? So producing a certain character of a certain Muslim character, right? From primary to senior high school. And also, of course, when you have these high achieving professionals, Muslim professionals, there's part of this da'wah movement. Also, and these people tend to be well placed in strategic and influential positions within the public and private sectors, to ultimately, Islamize the society, to make the Malaysian society more like Sharia compliant, for example. So as I mentioned before, there's a close cooperation between Indonesian and Malaysian dakwah activists, so those who run these schools. And also, yeah, it's part of the kaderisasi, so because those students who enroll in this school, many of them tend to also join the movement later on. Okay, so just a bit of the methods of that the school use, because the focus is on character development, especially specific kind of character to be part of a movement. So you have the focus more on the extracurricular activities, as a way to strengthen group dynamics and identity, right? So it's a way to, we all tend to let our guards down, when we doing ex school, right? So extracurricular activity, when we're having fun with our friends, camping or hiking or playing sports, right? So these are some examples, there's study circle, usra, there's a school outing, rihla, daura, and muhayyam camping, right? So, and pramuka activities, qiyamul lail, and longer school hours, which is really important because they tend to go, it's a full day school, right? So tend to go until 4 or 5 in the evening. So then the parents can come and pick up their kids from school. And also the teachers are also come from the Dakwah movement, right? So they're not just like any teachers. So the teachers have also been imbued, inculcated with the values of the Dakwah movement, and to be able to disseminate these values to their students as well. So yeah, so you can see here. So the teacher, they have the specific teacher training module, and also curriculum that is established by the uniform curriculum used by all these schools, established by the Jaringan Sekolah Islam Terpadu. This is the case of Indonesia. Okay, so now we are at the end of my presentation. So I hope that none of you have fallen asleep during my presentation. So before I end, I'd like to do a bit of shameless self-promotion. So I've written quite a bit on education and politics, especially in Malaysia and Indonesia. So I also study Indonesia. I research Indonesia for almost 20 years now, I think. So Indonesia is like a second home to me. My wife is Indonesian. So so here are some of the my recent work on education and politics, especially. So if you're interested, you can email me. So my email is there, azmil.tayeb@gmail.com. So feel free to get in touch if you have any questions, anything you want to discuss. So thank you again very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Tayeb. This is very interesting. Before we open for discussion, I would like to summarize in bahasa. Apa yang disampaikan oleh Profesor Tayeb tadi adalah mengenai falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan Malaysia yang dibentuk sejak 1998 untuk membentuk pelajar secara holistik menjadi insan yang seimbang dan harmonis antara intelektual dan rohani, seimbang ilmu pengetahuan dan akhlak mulia, bertanggung jawab serta berkontribusi dalam masyarakat. Kira-kira inilah yang merupakan nilai-nilai prinsip yang diajarkan dalam pendidikan karakter di Malaysia. Karakter dibangun baik secara individual maupun nasional. Karena Malaysia merupakan negara dengan penduduk yang sangat beragam, maka pendidikan karakter dalam lingkup nasional juga disusun dalam kurikulum nasional. Karena mayoritas Islam, maka pendidikan Islam bersifat wajib dengan modul yang telah ditentukan oleh Kementerian Pendidikan Islam. Untuk non-Muslim, disediakan modul pendidikan moral yang bersifat universal. Dan untuk pendidikan agama masing-masing bagi non-Muslim tersebut dikembalikan kepada orang tua atau bisa didapatkan di luar sekolah. Selain pendidikan agama, karakter juga masuk dalam kurikulum pendidikan kewarganegaraan. Selain pendidikan sekolah negeri atau public school, juga ada kafah school. Semacam sekolah sore atau les ya, kursus yang khusus mengajarkan tentang baca tulis Al-Quran dan syariah fardu ain. Sekolah ini gratis atau kalaupun ada pungutan biaya itu sangat murah karena memang mendapatkan subsidi dari pemerintah. Sekolah-sekolah di Malaysia itu ada yang di bawah Kemendikbud Malaysia, ada yang di bawah Dewan Agama Negara, juga ada yang di bawah Departemen Pembangunan Islam. Jadi isu tentang nilai di sini adalah identitas nasional atau identitas agama gitu, Islam ya, karena memang mayoritas beragama Islam, walaupun ada juga agama-agama lain di Malaysia. Politik kadang ada polarisasi termasuk tentang identitas nasional atau identitas Islam. Ini kadang-kadang juga dibawa ke sekolah karena selain Melayu juga ada etnis Cina, Dayak, Tamil, India, dan lain-lain. Tren sekolah di Malaysia ada kemiripan dengan di Indonesia ya, mengenai sekolah Islam terintegrasi setingkat SD, SMP, SMA, IT. populer di kalangan Muslim profesional. Di sini gerakan didukung oleh gerakan tarbiyah sebagai gerakan dakwahnya dan terinspirasi dari Ikhwanul Muslimin. Biasanya orang tua yang memasukkan anak-anaknya ke sini itu karena kurang percaya pada pendidikan Islam yang sudah ada atau yang diajarkan di sekolah negeri atau public school. Pendidikan Islam di sekolah ini bersifat terintegrasi. Doktrinasi dari pendidikan di sekolah swasta terintegrasi di Malaysia ini juga bisa dibilang ada kemiripan ya dengan yang ada di Indonesia. Jadi menempatkan aktivis dakwah di posisi yang strategis dan memang sangat berpengaruh di sekolah negeri maupun sekolah swasta. Kerjasama antara aktivis dakwah di Malaysia dan di Indonesia sampai sekarang sepertinya masih terus berlangsung dan memang ada kaderisasi juga seperti itu kira-kira. Demikian yang dapat saya simpulkan ya. Sekarang kita tiba pada masa diskusi bagi Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman yang sekiranya ingin bertanya. Atau ini sudah ada pertanyaan ya di kolom chat. Di sini pertanyaan pertama adalah Indonesian society is based on the values and norma of Pancasila and religion in its inner life, while Western Australian society Halo, mohon di-mute ya. Halo.
Ya, Kak.
Ke pertanyaan pertama ini sepertinya untuk Mr. Zereka ya. Indonesia society is based on the values and normal of Pancasila and religion in its inner life, while Western Australian society is based on ideology of non-religious secularism. But due to its character products, Western society tends to be better, more qualified than Indonesian society. Where has the role of religion education and Pancasila education been so far? Please explain. Thank you. This is, I think this is the question for either Pak Suratno or Mr. Zereka. Because it's compared between Indonesia and Australia.
Bu Maya, dibacain aja yang selanjutnya yang dari Bu Natrisia.
Oh, oke. Baik, Pak. Selanjutnya ada pertanyaan kembali dari Ibu Natrisia ya untuk Mr. Nasim. As a teacher, should have balanced self-esteem and self for others. My question is how you can appreciate and to get the solution to solve the problem if something happen, juvenile delinquency to the student in your school. Yeah, this is a question for Mr. Zereka also. Pak Zerekanya masih ada, Pak?
Masih ada. Pak Nasim?
Halo?
Still mute. Please do unmute your speaker, Pak Nasim.
Sorry, I'm asking, can you please repeat that question?
Yeah. First is about Australia. I mean, Western society like Australian, you don't emphasize, for example, about ideology of religion, but regarding character of your society, it is much better than Indonesia. How could it happen in your country?
Look, to be honest, so like I said before, there are different subjects that are taught from primary school, from kindergarten, so students from the age of 5 all the way to high school, which is about 17, 18 years old. One of these subjects, and a subject that I personally taught for many years, and I've taught it for about 7 years, which is PDHPE, which is the Personal Development, Health, and Personal and Physical Education. So PDHPE. And, you know, the topic from a very young age, you know, can talk about identity, who am I, you know, can talk about the family structure. And obviously, living in Australia now, you would understand that the family structure have changed. You know, many people, especially from the Islamic community, were very scared, you know, about their children being exposed to different family structure. You know, because they were under the impression that, you know, their children are being taught something that they are not used to, that it might be, you know, against Islamic values, etc. So it was really important to remind the parents that children need to be exposed to what's happening in society based on their age, so they can learn to respect differences, that there are different structures, there are different people out there. We might not necessarily agree with a lot of the things that people might do, but we still need to be very respectful. So in terms of, you know, just in terms of the question that you asked, students are taught from a very young age, you know, that respect is important. You know, there are different structures in terms of schooling, because, you know, some high schools are boys' school only, some high schools are girls' school only, and these are public schools. So children in high school are not exposed to being in the same classroom with the other gender. So when they go out into the big world, that can be a little bit of a shock to them, because they don't know how to behave in front of the other gender. In terms of religion, like I said before, religion is emphasized at home. Parents can send their school, after school hours to Quran school, Arabic school. Like I do that, for example, with my kids, even though they might get half an hour of scripture, which is religious education, a week at school, or maybe get 1 hour of Arabic at school in the public system. I still choose to send my kids to, an Arabic and Quran school on a Friday night for 3 hours, where they memorize the Quran, they learn, different things, about Islam, they learn the Arabic language. So there are opportunities out there for parents to access, different environment or different educational institute to expose students to religion. Does that answer the question?
Yes, Pak Nasim. Mbak Maya,
Ya,
saya mau jawab ya.
ya. Silakan, Pak.
I would like to answer it in bahasa ya. Pak Suyahmo, terhadap pertanyaan Pak Suyahmo, saya ingat Profesor Nurholis Majid ya, Cak Nur, kira-kira pernah menyatakan begini ya. Indonesia itu adalah negara mayoritas Muslim. Jadi kalau di Indonesia misalnya ya, tingkat korupsinya tinggi ya, berarti ada yang salah dengan kemusliman kita, karena kita mayoritas Muslim. Ya. Jadi yang salah itu bukan Islam, tapi Muslim. Itu kita. Bukan agama, tapi orangnya. Itu yang pertama. Kemudian yang kedua, itu juga sama dengan kita sebagai negara Pancasila. Ya, Pancasila kita sudah tahu nilai-nilainya. Kalau banyak hal di Indonesia kemudian terjadi pelanggaran terhadap nilai-nilai Pancasila, menurut Cak Nur dengan analogi yang tadi sama, itu juga bukan problem Pancasila, tapi problem moral orang Indonesia. Problem moral orang Indonesia. Ya. Kenapa? Karena agama Pancasila itu nilai-nilai. Ya, nilai-nilai. Nilai-nilai menjadi hidup ketika dia diimplementasikan oleh misalnya nilai-nilai Islam, kita sebagai seorang Muslim. Kita sebagai orang Indonesia, kita mengimplementasikan nilai-nilai Pancasila. Masalahnya adalah seperti disampaikan Cak Nur, memang ada gap gitu kan antara ya katakanlah pikiran, perkataan dan perbuatan ya. Jadi kalau mikir bebas, kalau ngomong kadang agak gampang ya mengucapkan, tapi perbuatan, tindakan itu paling sulit ya, paling sulit. Cak Nur sering menganalogikan apa istilahnya, kita membicarakan sesuatu mungkin gampang, tapi melakukannya itu akan jauh lebih sulit, jauh lebih complicated ya, jauh lebih rumit. Ya. Oleh karena itu biasanya ya Cak Nur banyak sekali terutama yang sering paling dikutip yang apa ayat Al-Qur'an kaburomaktan indallahi bla 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 ila akhirih ya. Jadi Tuhan akan sangat murka terhadap orang-orang yang istilahnya apa ya omdo lah ya, ngomong doang tapi tidak melakukan atau justru melakukan yang sebaliknya dari yang mereka omongkan. Jadi dalam konteks karakter di Indonesia saya kira seperti itu ya. Dan mungkin ya ini opini pribadi ya. Kalau misalnya 10 tahun katakanlah istilahnya Jokowi ya, Presiden Jokowi ada yang menyebutnya Bapak infrastruktur dan sebagainya karena sukses membangun jalan tol, jembatan dan sebagainya. Saya setuju ya. Tapi kalau kita bicara tentang katakanlah revolusi mental yang kalau tidak salah juga sudah digaungkan sejak periode Jokowi yang pertama ya. Yang menurut saya nggak sukses gitu kan. Tingkat korupsi masih tinggi dan sebagainya dan sebagainya. Artinya apa? Membangun jembatan itu lebih mudah dibanding membangun karakter manusia. Saya kira begitu, biar nggak terlalu panjang. Terima kasih. Kembali ke Ibu Maya. Masih di mute, Bu.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Suratno. Selanjutnya pertanyaan dari Ibu Natrisya tadi.
Dari Mas Sofyan itu, Mas Sofyan raise hand. Silakan Mas Sofyan.
Saya tanya Pak.
Oh iya, betul.
Oke,
Silakan,
nggak dianggap
Mas
sama
Sofyan.
Bu Maya saya Pak.
Enggak, soalnya tadi ada pertanyaan yang belum dijawab. Nggak apa-apa. Mas Sofyan dulu aja, langsung bertanya.
Hello, Sherin Madam. My name is Sofyan, Master Suratno student in Paramadina, and also his dangdut student. Thanks for all your presentation tonight. It was amazing. I would like to know, before we dig about the character education and your country, German and Australia, for Mrs. Mira and Mr. Nasim, which one is being taught first to the children, education or character? I repeat, which one is being taught first to the children, education or character? Thank you, Mbak Maya.
Baik, terima kasih. Ditujukan ke siapa tadi pertanyaannya?
Ke Pak Nasim.
Pak Nasim.
Ya, kemudian pertanyaan kedua di
Pak Nasim and Mrs. Mira, Jerman.
Oke. Mira is not joining us anymore ya. Jadi ke Pak Nasim aja.
Jadi Pak Nasim aja.
Pertanyaan kedua langsung dibaca aja Bu Maya. Dari Mbak Putri.
Dari Putri ya, Mbak Putri. Yeah, education is always related to the needs of society and government. One of the needs of the world community today is a healthy earth to be passed on to future generation. How does environmental education in Malaysia and Australia respond to environmental problems such as the climate crisis? I am very interested in environmental education, especially eco-pedagogy. I am very happy to hear the experience of environmental education in various countries. This is untuk semuanya sepertinya ya.
Untuk
Mungkin
Pak Nasim
bisa,
dan
iya Pak Nasim
Pak Azmil.
and Prof Tayeb. Siapa yang which one? Pak Tayeb probably mau menjawab terlebih dahulu.
Okay. So the perhaps I can also try to answer the first question from Pak Sofian. So education or character comes first, right? When educating children. So the environmental education in Malaysia, there is no specific subject, that deals with education or environmental education. So environmental education tends to be incorporated in subjects such as the science subjects like biology or maybe perhaps geography and things like that. So there's really no conscious effort from the Ministry of Education to be more proactive in introducing environmental education. But on the other hand, schools in Malaysia, not all schools, but some schools, they take their own initiative to introduce environmental education or environmental awareness, programs in their respective schools. So would you do recycling programs, or they do things, they save water, and things like that, or they go on to do extracurricular activities outside the school, they go hiking or things like that, to raise awareness about the environment. So but it depends on the initiatives from the schools themselves, so not a directive from the Ministry of Education. So now it's, some schools have this, I mean, they realize that it's important to have the to raise environmental awareness among the students. But some don't. So, but in a teachers training college, so there's, as far as I'm concerned, there's no really focus on environmental education themselves. So it's up to the individual, up to the teachers, and up to the schools, the school principals to carry out environmental awareness programs in their own respective schools. And also, just to briefly answer the Pak Sofian's question earlier. In Malaysia, this is actually a big debate, because the focus for the longest time has been on the quote-unquote education as opposed to character building or character development. So parents complain that their kids, have to learn, like sifir, like the multiplication tables and all these things, even when they were still in the kindergarten or class 1 SD, they have to do all these things, they're so focused on the academic, right? Especially, when looking at the PISA rank, ranking, and say like, oh, Malaysia is going down the ranking year after, so it creates this kind of panic among the policymakers. Say, okay, we need to focus more on reading, on mathematics, on all these things, so it at the expense of character education or building character. So I have maybe I can share a personal anecdote as well. A good friend of mine, he migrated to Australia, to Perth, I think more than 10 years, 15 years ago, simply because he wanted a better education for his kids. And then he said, like, one is first observation, he said, the kids are actually happier studying, going to school in Australia, because they see the school as fun, they get to play, especially when they're like SD kelas 1, kelas 2, so they learn values, right? So like helping each other, teamwork, they learn how to respect each other, they learn how to deal with conflicts and things like that, how to understand differences. So these are the kind of the basic values that tend to be overlooked in Malaysia because the focus is so much on the academics. So kids, they feel so much pressure, from such a young age to perform, right? It doesn't help with the high stakes, national exam as well, that puts even more pressure, right? And the PISA ranking and all these things. So when the kids, my friends' children, when they go to school in Australia, moving from Malaysian school to Australian school, it's such a big change, and they enjoy going to school, now compared to Malaysia, because it's very hard. They have to literally drag them out of bed to go to school in Malaysia. So that's my my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak. And next, maybe we will hear from Mr. Zereka, Pak Zereka.
Sure. In terms of the first question, which was about, which do we start first? Character education, or character development, or education in Australia. I believe Professor Tayeb has already touched on a little bit of that. For me personally, growing up in Lebanon until the age of 13, going to school with heavy bags, so many textbooks, literally memorizing different subjects. In Australia, obviously, it's very different. I came here at the age of 13, and I would go to school. Obviously, I went to an English center for the first year just to learn the English language. And that first year for me as a student was like my favorite year, in education. My bag was so light. I barely had any homework at home. Everything was done at school. I didn't have to spend hours and hours at home like I did in Lebanon, even though in Lebanon I went to a private school. And even in high school, even in high school, when you reach grade 9, the students are given the opportunity to choose 2 electives. So these are 2 subjects that they would like to learn about. And these are not basically, these are subjects of their choice. They call them elective because the student choose them. So you obviously do English, math, science, history, geography, and then you have an opportunity, PDHPE, but then after that, you get to choose 2 other electives of your choice. You can choose language, you can choose cooking, woodwork, electronics, computer studies, different subjects. And these are 2 subjects that you choose yourself. In year 11 and year 12, the only compulsory subject is English. Every other subject is, you choose, in year 11, you need to do 6 subjects. In year 12, you can drop down to 5 subjects. Only English is compulsory, but you can choose what other subject you want to learn. So you can, for example, learn English. You don't have to choose math. You can choose math if you want to, but with math, it's going to be based on your level. You can choose science. There's different subjects in science like chemistry, biology, physics, whatever. If you're interested in computers, there's different computer subjects. If you're very practical, there's woodwork, there's metalwork, there's so many other different subjects. What I've noticed in Australia, and especially from a very young age, student well-being and ensuring that student is ready to learn comes first before teaching them anything. And even in my inclusive education class, I cannot teach a student, and obviously this student has a disability. I can't bombard them with content and with information when their brain is so limited to what they can absorb and what they learn. You know, showing them that their emotions matter. If the student is upset, if the student is not ready to learn, we talk about, okay, why are you upset? What happened in the morning? We have like check-in program. You know, did you get enough sleep the day before? You know, do you need to have 10 minutes break, you know, to unwind and get ready? For example, after a break, you know, the student maybe was involved in a fight or something like that. They're not ready to learn. They're angry. They're upset. You're not able to teach that student if they're not ready to learn. And like our friend from Germany was saying, we are so, like, you know, we emphasize a lot on the students' well-being, on their critical thinking. Students are taught to be long life learners. They are taught to be global citizens, you know, to ask questions, to think outside the box. So what I've noticed in Australia, you know, even though there's a curriculum, but we don't teach it like word to word. It is all based on students' ability, on students' understanding, but it's also in terms of what do they build connection with, what do they have, what is relevant to them. And that's about the first question. The second question in regards to the climate, you know, for example, we have Clean Up Australia Day. You know, like, for example, in science, we talk about renewable and non-renewable resources. You know, what creates pollution? How can we reduce pollution? You know, we talk about, for example, keeping our environment clean, building more trees. Why is it so important to plant more trees? You know, we talk about, you know, emission and carbon dioxide, and why is that bad for the environment? You know, why is it, for example, you know, we talk about the ozone layer, you know, we talk about sun safety, and why in Australia it is so important to be sun safe, you know, etc. So talking about climate, obviously in different grade and to different students, is somewhat embedded in our curriculum, especially now the government is talking a lot about, you know, climate change and being involved with different countries in the Pacific, you know, about, you know, climate change. Thank you.
Thank you for your explanation. I would like to, I'm sorry, I think I will, no, we will have your time more than we planned, because there are some questions. Is this okay for you, Mrs. Zereka and Pak Tayeb?
Pak Azmil and Pak Nasim, is it okay if we continue?
It's okay,
So
it's okay.
we
it's
will
okay.
finish
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
webinar.
Yeah, we can take
Look,
the.
it's totally fine. I had a long nap. I know it's already midnight in Sydney. I did sleep for a few hours before
Okay.
this meeting, so no problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question is from Rizky Alia. Silakan, Mbak Rizky.
Yeah, hello.
Uh-huh.
My name is Rizky Azalia Latio. First of all, I would like to thank to all the speakers for sharing how education system in your country directly affects their students and students' character. Actually, it's just I'm just curious about how your personal about your personal opinion about what if Indonesian students do the same principle as the students in your country and implementing those principle with the Indonesian education system, which is we all know it's pretty different. Do you think it will help to build our character, or is it the system that needs to be fixed first in our country? Thank you.
Yeah, which one will be answered?
Do you want to collect the questions first, and then we
Yeah.
can answer all
Yeah.
in one go?
Mbak Maya, collect the question. Dibacain aja yang dari Bunat sama Bu.
Ada dua
Okay.
soalan di
Okay. Ya, di sini ada dari Ibu Nat ya, dan
dari Ibu Nat, dari Mbak Novi, dan dari
Dear Mrs.
satu lagi.
Nasim, this is for Mr. Nasim ya. As a teacher, should have balanced self-esteem and self for others. My question is how you can appreciate and to get the solution to solve the problem if something happened juvenile delinquency to the students in your school. And selanjutnya ada dari, this is from Novi. Introducing
about the impact of technological development.
I believe that different countries certainly have differences in creating educational character for students, but to what extent do you think this difference influence? And my questions whether the effects of current technological developments can influence the character of education. But to what extent does technology have a positive and negative impact on the formation of educational character? If technology is considered to provide good progress, but what about the ethic and moral he was born with? Is it not considered a setback in the world of human character education? Thank you.
Yang terakhir satu lagi Mbak Maya. Dari Mbak Adinda.
Dari Mbak Adinda, iya. Adinda Yovita. There's global phenomenon where crypto influencers spread their campaign to quit from school because it's a scam. But they ended up selling expensive class. Most of their audience are minor who still need schools. This kind of trend arrived in Indonesia a month ago, which not only giving adverse impact in academic education, but also character development. A lot of youth refuse to attend school, especially senior high school and university. Yes, there's a lot of successful people without bachelor degree, but those kind of public figure have privilege, unfair advantage, and safety net. Spreading campaign to quit from school to commoners just to reduce their chance to live up their life. This campaign also built easy money mentally. There's a lot of students who trapped with online loans in hope to win the high risk, high return bet, but ended up failed to pay their loan. Now my question is how to embrace students so they are not trapped with that situation. Please, Pak Tayeb or Pak Zereka.
I think because of time limitation, Pak Nasim would answer this question as well as closing remark, and then continued by Pak Azmil and then me. Because of time limitation, I think like that, Pak Maya. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Sur.
So in terms, obviously there's a lot of questions. So I'm just going to go into the chat just so I can read it. So in terms of the question about you know, as a teacher should have balanced self-esteem and esteem for others. You know, how can we appreciate and get the solution to solve the problem if something happened? Juvenile delinquency to the situation in your school. Can you explain to me, what do you mean by juvenile delinquency?
Bu Natricia, mungkin?
Yes. Yeah. Juvenile, yes. Good evening, Mr. Nazim. Juvenile delinquency, it means, for example, for student or for students have big problem starting from home, doesn't want to go to school, not attend the school, and then smoking cigarette or drink alcohol, something like that.
Okay.
Juvenile delinquency, I mean.
So basically, in high schools or in you know, in public schools, obviously because I work in a public school, smoking on school ground is not allowed for anybody. No teachers, no students, no workers, no cleaners. No one is allowed to be smoking on school ground. No alcohol is to be brought onto school ground at all. That's the law. You know, if students are caught smoking, they get suspended automatically. Unfortunately, in Australia, the electronic cigarettes or vape has become so common. And unfortunately, you know, in primary school, you know, I heard of stories that students, you know, smoking in the toilet, they were suspended for a few days automatically. Their parents were contacted. About attending schools, students don't have a choice whether to attend or not attend schools. If student is away for more than 3 days, we usually call the parents and we ask for an explanation. For example, if the student is away for a long period of time and there's no explanation given, we notify the school home liaison officer, and sometimes we even need to notify the police, because that becomes a welfare issue. Like, you know, the student is not coming to school, we don't know anything about them, where are they? So the police can get involved. The police can go home and ask, why is this child not attending school? They must be attending school. If parent needs to go overseas on a holiday, they need to give notice to the school and show the ticket when they go in, when they're coming back, and, you know, they need to put leave. So when students have behavior problems, and sometimes we have minor behaviors and sometimes we have major behaviors, you know, every school have a code of conduct. You know, for example, in my kids' school, in primary school, something like, you know, verbal warning, timeout, you know, and then they have another timeout, and then teacher's choice, which could be a detention, calling the parents, picking up rubbish, whatever. That's for primary school. For high school, usually there might be after school detention, you know, as I said before, they could get suspended. There's short suspension, there's long suspension, depending on what the behavior is. But usually, and research, you know, and looking into the well-being of the student, we know that when a student behaves in a negative way, it's like basically they're giving you a message that there's a problem, something is wrong. Children don't behave in the wrong way because they want to or they feel like it. They behave as a result of something. So we try to see the background. Has something happened at home? You know, are the parents, for example, divorced? Is there problems at home? Is there domestic violence? You know, are mom and dad fighting? You know, for example, is there some issues at home? For example, you know, Is there any violence? Is there any issues? You know, sometimes living in low socioeconomic, parents might not have enough money, you know, to buy food or something like that. That can affect the child's emotion and well-being, and then that can create some behaviors. So trying to understand the background and seeing why is the child behaving like this? What is causing this behavior? We separate the behavior from the child. The behavior does not identify the child. It doesn't become their identity. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nasim, for your explanation.
Thank you. Is there another question that I need to answer, or is that it?
Yeah, about the global phenomenon, about
the crypto?
The crypto, yeah. The
Okay.
student loans, about the student loans.
Okay. Look, to be honest with you, me personally, alhamdulillah, like, you know, I'm almost 37 years old and I haven't been dragged into this crypto phenomenon, into this, you know, I get a lot of messages on Instagram, and I personally have never tried it. I don't know what it is. You know, obviously I have a little understanding of it, but our job as educators is to remind students that education is very important, and that working hard and, you know, trying your best is what leads to a good future and a successful future. You know, reminding students of online safety, of, you know, interacting, like, you know, cyber safety, and making sure that they don't trust people on the internet, especially if they don't know them, and staying away from scammers, because, you know, we live in a time now where scamming is so popular. It is so frequent. You know, everybody is trying different ways to scam. Reminding students that, you know, to focus on their education and to focus on what they're doing, and not to fall in this trap. Like, you know, and reminding them, like, you know, there's different ways to invest. There's different ways to do things. And reminding them that they are children and they should be behaving as children, and as students, they shouldn't be putting extra burden on themselves by getting loans and by putting themselves into debt. You know, in Australia, unfortunately, we do have a higher percentage of suicide rate, and people, you know, committing suicide for different reasons. So it is really important and really crucial to raise awareness at schools, you know, in communities, and as a society, against this type of scamming.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And there's the other one. If technology considered to provide good progress, but what about the ethic and morals he was born with? It is not considered a setback in the world of human character education. This is about the influence of technology.
Technology, yes.
For the, for the character education.
Okay, yep. So, look, unfortunately, we need to understand that we live in a time where technology does consume our life. You know, education is very different to what it was like when I went to school, when my parents went to school. A lot of things are changing. Technology is now embedded in society in so many different ways. Like, for example, when I started working at the supermarket when I was 15 years old, you know, my job was to be scanning, or my job was to be punching in the code of every fruit and vegetable to be able to get the price. But then technology has improved. They had an online system where you just click on the fruit or the vegetable and you put it on the scale, it comes up automatically, or you start scanning the barcode. Society and globalization when it comes to technology has improved and it has changed. And then obviously now we've got online servers and we've got, online shopping, etc. It is, and the point that I made before is that it is very important to raise children and students to become global citizens of the world and to be aware of what is happening around them. Technology can have definitely a positive and a negative impact. It depends how it is used. And I even see it in my inclusive education classroom. The boys just wants to go on their laptop and watch movies or watch YouTube videos or play games. But it's like, no, this is not what education is. We can use our laptop to find information. For example, we're learning about World War I. We're learning about World War II. Let's use the internet to find simple information that we can all understand about these important events in history. With technology, I personally believe it depends how we use it. We can, if it is used incorrectly or if it is overly used, it can have a negative impact. But if the technology is used correctly, it can be very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zereka. And then we go to Mr. Tayeb, Pak Tayeb.
Okay. I will try to make my response brief so that so we all can end this soon, especially for Mr. Nasim, who's probably midnight right now in Australia, in Sydney. Okay. So the first one, the technological development in classroom. I think when we just not too long ago, we had our COVID-19 pandemic. I think that really exposed, right, the technological gap between students, so rural and urban, well-off, well-to-do, not so well-to-do students. I mean, I see that with my own students as well. But I think now even my university, I cannot say for primary or secondary education because I'm not a school teacher. I teach at the university. So even my university now has shifted to hybrid learning because it sees the advantages of having technology or retaining some of the online learning aspects of the online learning that were implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think the one advantages that I see, especially in my classroom, is there's a lot more interaction between I think students they especially when do more interactive type, I think there seems to be students who tend not to ask questions in class. They would ask questions during the online lecture, because of the being anonymous, helps. Not anonymous, but I guess behind the screen. So I think that helps with maybe building self-esteem and self-confidence, so perhaps later on that will translate into being brave in public speaking or asking questions, in public, in person, right? So it's a good start. But I think, of course, there's also the negative aspect, which is, there's a bit of distance, right? Because when I mean, I personally still prefer face-to-face teaching, because I like to interact personally with my students. So like students tend to hide behind the screens, when you do online learning. So that's but of course, the goods and the bads, we have to take both equally and use what benefit us the most. And then the other question about the what aspects of the character education in, let's say, Malaysia can help to improve the Indonesian students. I think that's the one of the questions. I believe, I don't know. I mean, I feel that character education in general should be customized, should be tailor-made for the country itself. I don't think there's a one size fits all. Some people tend to look at like the Finland model or the whatever model. I think there are some good aspects that we can adopt, right? But I think there's no one size fits all. I think we have different socio-economic, political, differences, right, between countries, different history and all these things, different demographics, right? Even, the gap between the rich and the poor and, availability of resources and things like that, I think should all play to be taken into account. So I believe that, some aspect, I think like universal values, should be taught regardless of where you are, basically being a good person. I think this is, you can find this is a universal value you can find anywhere in the world, right? So being a good person is the same in Indonesia as in Malaysia, Australia, Germany, anywhere in the world, right? So I think this should be implemented, should be taught, but the finer details of it, I think, it depends on the country itself. I think Indonesia has its own strengths and weaknesses. I think it should identify that and perhaps, use that to improve the character education in the country. And the final one, it's a very, very interesting question, I think, about the crypto influencer, because we have the same problem in Malaysia as well. So I'm actually glad to see that question in the chat box, because because we have it became a sort of, I mean, I wouldn't say viral, but it became a hot topic, I think, for quite some time, especially on social media. People were like, so there are like several of these crypto influencer, or also I think these are like forex traders as well. These are day traders who just business in the foreign exchange. Like they're day trader and things like that. So they say like, why waste time? Why waste money to go to university? I mean, they meant university, not high school. They don't specifically say that you have to drop out from high school, but they say like, I mean, don't bother go to university. You can make a lot more money, doing what we do, be dealing in cryptocurrencies, or dealing with as a forex in forex trading. Then why waste time go to university? You can get rich. So they always have like, they show like all the nice sports cars and big bungalows, and they go on holidays and things like that. I don't know if it's true or not, but they always have there's a template, like how they promote their lifestyle. And so basically encouraging kids not to go to university. Basically, you're wasting your time. So, but for me, it's of course and then I mean, if you see a university or a school like a factory, that only produces what what the jobs require, then perhaps then then you agree with these influences, right? So why even bother go to schools or university? But we know that schools and universities are more than just a factory, right? So it's more than just it's a way that you develop, I mean, you learn what it's like to be a good person. I think this is the most important thing, right? So be a good person, and you learn critical thinking, you learn how to work with each other, you learn how to resolve conflicts, you learn empathy, right? To people who are different than you, to foster understanding. so that you create harmonious society and all these things, these ideals that you learn in schools, right? So I think it goes beyond, just producing workforce labor, things like that, So of course, I mean, when this thing were hotly debated or discussed, I think most people agree that, you should not quit school or not go to university if you have the opportunity, because it's more than just about getting a job. It makes you a human being, right? A good human being. I think that should be, the reason why you go to school or you go to university. So, and then I guess to a closing remark, maybe a very 10-second closing remark. So thank you very much to Paramadina, Universitas Paramadina, and also the Lead Institute for inviting me, to Bu Maya, and also Pak Suratno, and Pak Rector as well. I'm glad to be here, and I hope that it's useful, it's beneficial for all of us, including myself. I learned a lot. So I hope that we can engage more in this kind of discussion in the future. Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Thank you very much, Pak Tayeb. Sebelum saya tutup pada malam hari ini, saya serahkan kepada Pak Suratno untuk memberikan pernyataan closing, Pak. Silakan, Pak Suratno.
Terima kasih, Bu Maya. Singkat saja, saya mau merespon 2 pertanyaan ya. Yang pertama dari Mbak Novi tentang impact of technological development ya. Kalau dalam konteks Indonesia, saya kira impact-nya ya secara umum masih kurang bagus ya. Tadi di awal sudah saya sampaikan, misalnya data survei terakhir ya, indeks digital inclusion itu hampir 90%. Artinya 90 dari survei ya 90% orang Indonesia itu menggunakan internet, menggunakan gadget. Tapi kalau kita itu digital inclusion, tapi digital literasi atau literasi digital itu indeksnya cuma 44 atau 45. Bayangkan, jadi separuh orang yang menggunakan internet itu tidak menggunakan secara sehat, secara positif, secara baik, dan sebagainya. Jadi memang impact-nya belum bagus, atau untuk tidak disebut buruk ya Mbak Novi. Dan kata kuncinya adalah digital literasi. Ya. Kalau kita lihat waktu pandemi dan setelahnya, Kemenkominfo banyak sekali bikin program digital literasi. Ya banyak kritik ya, ada yang mengatakan menghambur-hamburkan dana, kemudian ada juga yang mengkritik kurang efektif ya, karena hasilnya survei terbaru masih seperti itu. Tapi tentu itu tidak hanya tugas Kemenkominfo ya untuk digital literasi. Kalau kita lihat NGO juga banyak banget sekarang yang menyuarakan digital literasi. Bahkan di dunia pendidikan ya, di dunia pendidikan sudah dibahas juga tentang mengintegrasikan digital literasi ini ke dalam pelajaran-pelajaran ya, atau mata kuliah ya. Yang saya dengar sih dari teman di Kemdikbud dulu paling mungkin kan integrasinya ke mata pelajaran TIK ya, apa istilahnya teknologi informasi dan komputer atau komunikasi ya, dan mungkin juga ke pelajaran-pelajaran yang lain. Artinya apa istilahnya gerakan untuk literasi digital ini juga sudah merambah banyak bidang ya, tidak hanya di Kemenkominfo, NGO ya, tapi juga di dunia pendidikan. Jadi ya kita lihat akan seperti apa. Nggak tahu, mungkin ke depan bisa saja digital literasi menjadi mata pelajaran sendiri misalnya ya. Kalau itu dirasa perlu, why not gitu kan. Kalau sementara sih progresnya digital literasi terintegrasi ya ke dalam mata pelajaran, karena itu dianggap sangat penting ya. Dan kita quote and quote darurat digital literasi. Itu yang pertama. Kemudian yang kedua, tadi pertanyaan tentang apa influencer yang sekolah sekarang sudah nggak berguna lagi ya. Saya kira ya kita nggak setuju dengan itu, tapi hikmahnya menurut saya itu adalah otokritik ya. Otokritik terhadap dunia pendidikan kita ya, terutama dunia pendidikan formal. Jadi bagaimana dunia pendidikan formal sekarang menjawab tantangan zaman yang berubah dan juga apa istilahnya dinamika yang sangat pesat ya. Sekarang anak-anak kalau ditanya cita-cita sudah nggak kayak dulu ya, citanya jadi ABRI, jadi dokter, jadi insinyur ya. Sekarang citanya jadi influencer, YouTuber dan sebagainya. Apa istilahnya, bahkan mohon maaf tahun 80-90-an chef, tukang masak itu masih dilihat di pandang mata ya, sebelah mata. Sekarang chef dan sebagainya menjadi profesi yang banyak sangat sekali digemari ya. Jadi memang ada zaman yang berubah dan otomatis dunia pendidikan formal itu juga harus menyesuaikan diri ya. Kalau ingin apa istilahnya menjawab tantangan ya. Termasuk juga saya kira nanti kaitannya dengan istilahnya dunia kerja dan soal isi money tadi ya. Ya sekarang misalnya bahkan ya kita bisa melihat banyak sisi ya, misalnya anaknya Raffi Ahmad gitu kan, masih kecil banget tapi sudah make money tinggi sekali. Jadi buat apa sekolah tinggi-tinggi misalnya ya. Ya itu apa istilahnya otokritik juga terhadap dunia pendidikan, bagaimana dunia pendidikan berkait dengan misalnya tidak hanya pengetahuan gitu kan, transfer ya, tapi juga nanti apa kesejahteraan dan sebagainya ya. Dan itu di Indonesia memang apa belum bagus gitu kan. Jadi itu otokritik yang sangat kalau bahasa lagunya menghunjam jantung ya. Dan saya kira juga apa mungkin kita semua concern dengan itulah ya. Kita semua concern dengan itu bahwa pendidikan itu ya tidak melulu misalnya apa soal isi money ya, soal duit dan sebagainya tadi sudah dijelaskan Pak Nasim dan Pak Azmil ya. Terakhir saya ingin mengutip apa istilahnya tentang pendidikan karakter ini, terutama yang sangat terkenal itu kita menyebutnya the seven deadly social sins ya. Jadi ada 7 dosa sosial yang sangat mematikan dan ini bahaya. Sehingga kita semua harus concern dengan hal itu ya. Menurut Mahatma Gandhi ya. Yang pertama adalah wealth without work ya. Jadi kesejahteraan tanpa bekerja. Pleasure without conscience ya. Kemudian knowledge education without karakter yang kita bahas malam hari ini. Itu kalau sampai terjadi itu dosa kita semua bersama ya. Commerce without morality ya. Jadi kalau sekarang banyak penipuan di dunia internet itu ya social sin juga gitu. Kemudian science without humanity. Yang keenam religion without sacrifice dan yang ketujuh politik without principle. Saya kira itu menjadi concern kita bersama seven deadly social sin ya menurut Mahatma Gandhi dan hari ini kita membahasnya terutama education without karakter ya. Semoga ke depan pendidikan kita di Indonesia dan di dunia menjadi lebih istilahnya berkarakter dan tentu kita semua concern dengan hal itu. Saya kira begitu, saya kembalikan ke Mbak Maya. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Pak Suratno atas closing-nya, cukup menarik. Alhamdulillah, the discussion running very well and interesting for this evening. To Pak Tayeb and also Pak Zereka and Pak Suratno, thank you very much for your insightful explanation, and we are very glad, very happy to have you all tonight. And again, very sorry that we took longer of your time that was planned. Alhamdulillah, diskusi ini sudah berjalan dengan lancar sejak awal tadi sampai sekarang ini. By saying alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, terima kasih kepada seluruh partisipan yang telah hadir dan berpartisipasi malam hari ini. Mohon maaf apabila ada kekurangan. Wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya kembalikan kepada Mbak Nurma.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Thank you for the amazing discussions from all the speakers. I hope this discussion will bring us hikmah, wisdom. Selamat Hari Pendidikan. See you for the upcoming webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah.
Thank you very much.
Terima
Pak
kasih
Nazim.
Pak Azmil.
Terima kasih
Thank
banyak
you,
Pak
Professor.
Hope we'll
Suratno,
see you
Mbak
again,
Maya.
Pak
Semoga sehat
Nasim, Pak
selalu,
Tayeb,
stay
ya,
safe and
Wisnat.
healthy.
Terima kasih
Ya.
Mr. Azmi
Assalamualaikum.
Terima
Tayeb.
kasih untuk semuanya.
Selamat istirahat Pak Nasim, Pak.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Thank you. Thank you so
wabarakatuh.
much.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam. Terima
warahmatullahi
kasih semuanya
wabarakatuh.
teman-teman. Selamat beristirahat.